Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is going to be our second, more intermediate style project today. So if you guys want to join us, we have some supplies that I need you to get. So if you guys have a moment, I forgot to mention this earlier, you guys are going to need masking tape. So if you have the option of getting masking tape, I would get this, or like blue painter's tape, that will work too. I will caution about Scotch tape. If Scotch tape is your only option, maybe just tape a little bit like on the absolute outer corners, but I wouldn't tape the whole perimeter. Scotch tape has a nasty tendency to rip. So if you need to, you could tape just a little bit the corners, like if that's all you have, we can try to make that do and make it work. But if you have, I'd rather use masking tape. So you need masking tape, you're gonna need some paper, some watercolor paper. I used a full sheet today. So one full sheet, you're gonna need your paints, we're gonna need some salt, brushes, and if you were with me last time, I dumped my water out and got some clean water. And I have paper towel and that's off camera. And I'm also using a hair dryer today. So we used it last week. We will use it today as well. So make sure that if you have the option, go ahead and swipe your mom's hair dryer. Just a reminder, I will be using it on my project. Make sure you are muted before you use the hair dryer. Otherwise, we're going to be making a lot of racket. All right, so while you guys are getting your supplies and set up, I'm going to say a prayer before we get started. Thank you, Lord, for this time to come together, Father, to be expressive in the gifts that you have given us, Lord, and to help us to all to continue to grow, not only in you, Father, but also the talents and the gifts that you have given us in every area of our lives. And we ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
Amen.
Amen. All right, so while you guys are getting your supplies, I'm going to get started. So if you guys have your tape already, what I'm going to do is be taping down. So the reason I'm taping down this time, and we didn't last time, the more water you apply on your paper, you're going to want to tape it because this will really bow and buckle. And if you've already painted some things on your own, you may have noticed this. So I'm going to get my masking tape right now, and I'm going to tape the entire perimeter, so all the way around. So a little maybe snippet to pay attention to as you're taping. Try to make it the same all the way around. So what I mean by that is if I'm gonna tape this side here, I'm gonna try to tape about I don't know, an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch perimeter, about that big. I don't know if it shows up on camera or not. And then I'll try to duplicate that all the way around. It just looks cleaner if all the edges are the same amount masked. If not, it's not the end of the world. I just think it looks a little bit neater when you're done. A reminder, if you're just tuning in right now, I am using masking tape. I really don't encourage using the Scotch tape just because it tends to rip. I've even had, so there's so many different brands of masking tape. I've had some brands of masking tape more prone to rip than others. I've also had some paper has a tendency to rip more than others. So just be careful and just know that when you go to take it off, just proceed slowly. If you're a bit aggressive with your untaping, it has a higher occurrence of ripping, so be careful. All right, the last little bit at the top. Okay, so now I'm in frame here. All right, so we will be doing a little bit of drawing today, you guys. I think, did I mention you'll need a ruler? I might have forgotten to say that again. I said it earlier, but I don't know if I said it this time. You will need a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can always use like, I don't know, the hard side of the paper. Let me see, here we go, like my pad of paper. If I have like a pad of paper and I don't have a ruler on hand, you could always use this. The only problem is it doesn't have the numbers on it, and we will actually be using a little bit more numbers involving our ruler. So this is great if you just need the straight lines, but it's not going to help you with regards to making everything even. So if you have a ruler, please get it out. Okay. Looks like people are still taping, so I'll wait just a moment longer. I'm using a mechanical pencil today, everybody. If you guys only have a regular pencil, that's okay. You just may have to sharpen it, I don't know, a couple times during this process, just so that we can keep the lines nice and clean. All right. So I don't know what size paper everyone is using. So this measurement might be a little bit different depending on the size of paper that you're using. Most watercolor papers that you guys are probably buying and have access to are probably a standard 9x12 size, which is what I'm using. So that's why I split mine into 3, 3, 3, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second.
Hey, Anna, would you take a minute and just show everybody again, some of the people coming on late, what we're going to be working on?
Sure. Slide this in here. So this is what our project is going to be today, you guys. It's going to be a nice, pretty door. The original reference that I drew this from actually had an arch. And so if somebody is really wanting to do a bit more complicated door, you can always make this an arched door. But I did not. I made this all just straight lines time, and we can get this through much faster, I think. So this will be our project today, is our door. All right, so it looks like everyone is mostly there, so we'll start in. So what I'm gonna do is take my ruler, and I'm gonna go, I'm eyeballing it distance-wise up here. So let me see, well, I can measure mine. Let's see, how many inches did I go up? I went about 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm gonna take my ruler, I'm gonna take about 1.5 inches from the bottom and make myself a little mark. I'll make myself a mark on this side, and I'll make my mark on this side. Because then I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to make a straight line all the way across my picture. A reminder, please draw lightly with all of this because they need to be erased or adjusted. If you draw too hard, this is going to be difficult. So I've just drawn a straight line here, and now I need to mark out for myself where my door is going to go. So from the edge of our paper, so you should be able to see it through your tape. I'm going to line up my ruler at 3 inches. So 3 inches from the outer perimeter, I'm going to make a little mark. And then 3 inches from the other side. This is from the edge of the paper. Make sure it's the edge of the paper, not the tape. I'm going to make another mark. So I should have 2 sort of darker lines here, here and here. That's my door. Okay. Now let's see. I think I made my door like 6 inches. Let's see. This part doesn't really matter, you guys, the height of your door. Looks like I just made mine about 6.5 inches tall. So I'm going to use my ruler right now. I'm going to turn my picture so it's easier. And I'm going to make my door 6.5 inches tall. And it looks like I need to move my ruler down. Okay. All right, so if you guys are still taping, I'll just talk about what I did. So I've just made my door right now. So I measured in 3 inches from the side here to here. That was 3 inches. And then from the left to the inside was 3 inches. That way my door was smack dab in the middle of my paper for a 9-inch width paper. Then if you already did that section, then I made the length of the door, and I made my length 6.5 inches. That does not really matter. You guys can make it as long as you want it or as tall as you want it to be. Apparently that's how long I made it. So that's why I'm trying to remeasure this off to the side to check my measurements, but that's what I made. The outer perimeter of the door was 6 inches. Now, to the next easy step is the I did sort of the stone perimeter along my door, and both of these, both sides, are just 1 inch. So we're gonna take your ruler and you're gonna measure 1 inch out from the door and make a little mark for yourself, and you're gonna do that on both sides. Now, something I forgot to do with my door that I really try to do is I make marks both at the bottom and the top of whatever I'm going to measure so that my ruler isn't crooked. Sometimes, you can get the distance right on one side, but if you don't have your mark for yourself on the other side, you're more prone to having the ruler possibly, go one way or the other. So I'm gonna take my ruler up here and I'm gonna make myself a mark up at the top as well so that it's not crooked. I think I prefer my clear ruler to this wood one. Okay. And then I think, yep. So then with my continuing this sort of big piece of stone that sits on the top, what I did is here at the top, right here, I measured out 1/4 or 1/2 inch, I should say, 1/2 inch this way and 1/2 inch this way to make sure that they were even. This is probably not the easiest way to do this or the fastest way to do this. I guess this is just how my brain works. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay, I'm gonna try to make a straight line. Actually, I can't see. I'll turn this around. Okay, so there is the top. Now, this is sort of the stone part of the door. Now, I think, let's take a measure. I'm pretty sure this is probably 1 inch again. Yeah, so then the height of this stony area is also 1 inch. So measure 1 inch on both sides and connect it all the way across. See, I tried to make this as, equal measurements as I could, so this would be a little bit faster. Okay. So wonderful. So there is now the sort of bricked area along the perimeter. We just did the top and we did the sides. So now this is the harder part of this picture is the door. So if you guys want to just eyeball it and just draw it out, you can. I tried the best I can to make this equal. So as even Steven as I could. So let's see what I did. I think I did quarters. Yeah. Nope, that's a half. So it looks like I made a 1/2 inch mark. So inside your door, what you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler and 1/2 inch, make your mark. So 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch in, and you make mark at the top and the bottom. And we're going to make a nice long line right here. Okay, so I just made marks, 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch in, and I did that on both the top and the bottom. So now we're going to connect these up. Now this one, draw very lightly because you're going to have to erase quite a bit of this. So do not draw this too dark. This is sort of going back to if any of you guys did any of the perspective videos with me, we erased quite a few lines. The same thing goes for, hey John, I like that. We erased quite a few of the lines.
Hey, everybody, if there's an option on here for screen sharing, make sure you talk to us before you try and share your screen.
Okay. And then from this, you guys, so I just made this exterior line here, here, and here. So from this line, I measured 3/4 over, 3/4 over. I'm gonna do that at the top as well. Make little marks and connect. Okay, how's everybody doing keeping up so far? We have like a bunch of just straight lines right now. Is everybody sort of at that point? Okay, no objections. I'm gonna keep going. So right now we just have a bunch of straight lines, but we don't have those little openings that are in the door. So we're gonna have to start making those now. So let's see, I bet I made them a 1/2 inch. Nope. 1/4 inch. I have some erasing to do. Okay, so I'm gonna take my ruler now and I'm going to create the bottom line to the inside of these little openings. I don't know, I probably just eyeballed it. I don't know, maybe I made it a 1/4 inch. So let's make myself a little mark. Make myself a mark. I wonder if I eyeballed these too. Looks like I made them 1.5 inches. Okay, so can you guys see how I just made my first little opening down here? Made my first little opening. So I'm actually going to erase. I didn't need that line there. I'll get rid of it. Looks like I made my boxes a little bit smaller than my first one. I'm trying to decide if I want to make them a little bit bigger. I think I do. I might make mine a little bit bigger, you guys. Yeah, I think that looks better. So I'm just making mine a little bit wider. Maybe it'll give you guys a chance to catch up if you're a little bit behind. Cool. All right. Okay, I'm making it a 1/2 inch between the bottom section and this middle section of, I don't know, it has a name. I don't know what it's called. Inlay? I don't know. It's probably a technical name for it that I don't know. Okay, so see, I've just made my first little cross section. You see that? First little cross section, kind of looks like a little cross. Now I'm gonna make my next set. There should be 3 of these. So just keep going until you get 3 of them done. How are you guys doing? You doing okay? You can tell this is definitely not so much a beginner exercise. There was a lot more measuring in this one. Okay, now I have 2 sections of door, and I'm working on my last one. And that looks crooked. I gotta turn it. That's too hard doing it that way. Okay, so you should have 3 sections, you guys. See, I eyeballed it and I shouldn't have because that's not correct. There we go.
Miss Anna, I suppose if it was a like an old door somewhere, that it could be kind of crooked too, though, right?
Absolutely, it could. And I actually think I had more fun with making the lines not so perfect in the pen and ink portion of this picture, but yes, it definitely could be. I think it was just going to be bothering me if I kept seeing it totally crooked. Okay, so I'm just finishing up my door because remember I told you guys I expanded the size of that those in shapes. Well, then it made the door a little crooked because I just eyeballed it. I did not measure. And now I can tell it's crooked. So just fix that. Now I got to put my line back in. Okay, so we're just about now in the home stretch, you guys. So there we go. I just finished up the last section of my door. You guys should be approximately at that same point. So I've just finished up all these. Now we have some lines to get rid of. Now, in my picture, I did leave a little bit of the pencil line under there just because sometimes there actually is a seam of the door, but mine are too dark. So I'm gonna come in here and erase these, and you need to erase these. So in here and in here, erase those so that they're a lot lighter if you have extra lines like I do. And erase completely that middle one, which I still had my middle one. I got rid of that. Okay, my door will not be perfect, but oh well. Okay. All right, so here's my door, you guys. Is everyone else in about the same spot? Okay. While you guys are finishing up anything on your door, let's start working on the brick lines. So I just took my ruler. This I think I did. Did I eyeball it or did I actually measure it? Let's see. 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. So I made my brick area over here. I made them 2 inches, and then the one at the top was just itty bitty, and I didn't care. So if you want to just make with your ruler a couple marks. So I'm gonna make a 2-inch mark. And a 2-inch mark. And a 2. I'm doing it to both sides so that I have something nice to line this up to. Two. Okay, now I'm gonna take my ruler and connect them. So this is kind of like a little bit of like perspective, right? So I get that dot lined up, that dot lined up. You do not need to draw through your door, so just stay in your bricks. Now I've got lines on both sides. And I'm gonna do that all the way up. This would be easier if you guys turned your paper around, but I'm trying not to turn my paper too many times. That's why I'm holding my ruler this way. It's easier to see this direction. Okay. All right, we're almost done. So now the last little areas to work on are the little bits of detail. So I added in a doorknob and I added in a hole for your mail. What was that called? A mailbox? I don't know. Does it count as a mailbox if it's in your door?
Mail slot.
Mail slot. Thank you. There's the word. So I added in a mail slot down here, sort of in the middle-ish, and I added my doorknob. I don't think it really matters where you add your doorknob. I've seen doorknobs sit higher and I've seen them sit lower. So just add in a doorknob. I also added in a little, is that called peephole?
Yep.
So I added all that little bit of detail in. So go ahead and work on that. So who's working on the digital version of this?
Caleb is.
Yeah.
Caleb
no.
is? All right. Okay. And I'm going to do my doorknob. Oh, and before we do the doorknob, I forgot you guys. The door has this perimeter on it. So everyone, really quick look. Do you see how there's this teeny little, it's like, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch. It's this teeny little perimeter all the way around. You guys need to put that in. I forgot about that. Otherwise it looks a little weird. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a perimeter. There we go. That's better. Now I'll put my doorknob in. Okay, good. All right, bricks. So I did sort of make a little bit of a, I don't know, a step down here at the bottom, kind of like a little I don't know, doorway thing that comes out. I made that first. We're gonna do a teeny tiny bit of perspective, kind of, with our bricks. So I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna take my ruler and push this out so you can see. So straight out in front of you, so right in the middle, it's gonna almost come straight out. I'm gonna draw a straight line. And then as I go out this way, the ruler is gonna turn like this. When I'm going this way, the ruler is gonna go like this. The angle is gonna kind of, like, remember the whole fan situation with like eyes and different things? It's sort of fanning out. So I'm gonna draw myself first just a couple lines that are gonna kind of follow that angle. So as it comes out, it slowly turns more. This is creating a little bit of perspective, kind of. Okay, so just a few. I'm not gonna go all the way out. And it can be as wide as you want. I just made them come out a little bit further than the little, I don't know, step or whatever. And I think I made this one wrong. Yeah, I did. I'm gonna fix this guy. He looks weird. Okay, do you guys all have your little door and the bricks on the bottom? Okay, I see I'm seeing a few thumbs up. Evelyn, how are you doing, honey? Looks like you've been keeping up real well.
You're giving a thumbs up.
Good. There we go. Okay. Pardon me. So after we finished all of these sort of more vertical lines, and now we have to give some horizontal bricks. So what I do is I kind of jump every other. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna get about pretty close to my little step here. Say I start with this big guy over here. I'm gonna do one line. I'm going to jump this one and I'm going to go to the next one. So I'm not gonna do this one. I'm gonna do this one. So I'm kind of doing every other. See how it's every other brick. Then I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna take my ruler. This really is about you deciding how big you want your bricks to be, but now I'm gonna do the ones that I didn't do last time. What I'm trying to do is not have seams touching each other. So usually with bricks, wherever the, like this seam here would not touch this seam here. They need to be in different places. Okay. Great. Now we got a few bricks on the bottom. Okay, you guys, so that was it for the drawing portion of our painting. Now we can actually start painting, which, whew, got that done with. All right, so you guys ready to start painting? So a recap, you guys are gonna need salt for our first little bit of the painting. I'm gonna get my Crayola paints out. See if I'm in focus.
What colors are we going to use?
Great question. So we're going to be using predominantly yellow, blue. I used some purple and I used some brown. Now the reference photo that I was using for this painting, the door was this gorgeous like cobalt blue. I don't have cobalt in this kit. This kit comes with a color that looks awfully like phthalo for anybody who knows their colors. So right now would be the chance if you have something besides a Crayola kit, which all I have is Crayola. So I get one choice of blue. So this is the blue I'm going to use. If you have a choice, I want you to take your time right now and decide which blue you want to use. Yeah, are you holding up cobalt? Yeah, try the cobalt, Evelyn. You may even find that the reference photo that I was looking at, it was actually a combination probably of cobalt and ultramarine, if you have ultramarine paint. But this is the blue I have in the Crayola kit, and it is very much, it's like a phthalo. It's very sort of green tinted. Yeah, so Evelyn, use cobalt and ultramarine. If you have the choice, use cobalt and ultramarine. I think the color looks prettier. But if you're like me and you're using Crayola, we get one choice. And like I said, you're also going to be using yellow. I think I used actually a little bit of brown and orange on the background as well. So you need to get all those colors out. So we're going to be starting with doing the background, which uses a lot of salt. So what I'm going to do right now is get some puddle of color ready. I'm going to be getting a puddle of color of a large puddle of yellow. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of orange.
Miss Anna,
Yes.
what colors did you say we need again?
You're going to need yellow, brown, purple, blue, maybe a little bit of red or orange, depending on what you've got. Oh, I did use a teeny tiny bit of black. So if you guys have black, I did use a tiny bit. Okay. So I'll mix my puddle of yellow. So we're doing just the background right now. So I'm getting my yellow prepared. And at this point, I'm going to talk to you about brushes. I did use a larger brush. If you don't have one, you can still make this work. You're just going to have to kind of skedaddle it and move somewhat quickly. If you have the chance of using a larger brush, go ahead and use that. Since I used it for the first time, I won't use it today. That way, in case you guys don't have a bigger brush, you can watch how it can still happen. So I'm getting my yellow puddle ready to go. I'm also, for the sake of not having to spend too much time, I'm going to get my orange ready. You guys, I rarely just use straight out of the tube color. Even in this case where I do have access to just straight orange, a lot of times I will doctor it up by adding either red or yellow or something to it. So make sure you're aware that you may have to doctor up your color a little bit. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna start, let's see, I'm a righty, so I'm actually gonna start on the left here so I don't have to cross myself. I'm going to wet this little band from here all the way up to about this little tip of the stone area with just water, okay? That's what I'm gonna start with. So I'm gonna wet, and so I'm using my baby brush, since most of you, that's all you have access to. So I'm dipping my brush several times. I only get about 3 inches of space before I have to grab more water. Okay, so I've just wetted my whole area, you guys. I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up. So I'm gonna grab my yellow, and I'm gonna start laying this in. You do have to kind of move quickly because there will be some more paint in here. So just very quickly get on the yellow. Now, depending on what kind of paints you guys are using, the yellow will come out more strongly than other times. I'm not going out to the very tippy edge, so you guys can play around with that. I'm not going out to the edge, so I'm letting it sort of bleed out. If you guys want to go to your taped edge, that's fine. I'm putting extra yellow right near the bricks. And now comes the orange. So I'm moving really fast, you guys, because I don't have a lot of time before it starts drying. I'm adding it towards the bottom and I'm staying more towards the bricks. That's where most of my orange is gonna stay. I'm not gonna go out crazy. I might do little sploochies. I don't know if that's my term for the day. As I go out just a little bit, because I'm imagining this sort of being like, I don't know, stucco or something like that. It's got texture to it. So I'm kind of just pushing out some of the color. And then lastly, I wanted extra dark, so I grabbed a little bit of brown. I added it in with my orange. And I just tapped in a little bit in a few areas. Like I said, I'm moving really fast because I have to get salting. Okay, I think that's all I'm gonna add. Now's my salt. I'm gonna grab a nice hefty amount and I'm gonna lay it on. I have to do this while it's wet. That's kind of why I was rushing you. Because if it's not wet, this won't work. Heavier salt in some areas, you guys, lighter salt in others. Okay. All right, I'm gonna scoot this down so you can see. So now I'm gonna paint the upper half of this painting. So from here all the way to here. So I can't do the whole thing at once. That's why I'm breaking it up into 3 pieces, you guys, because especially with the baby brush, if I try to do this whole thing at once, there is no way I'm gonna get to the end before the paper has started to dry. So make sure that you do it in small snippets. That way you have more time to paint. All right, I'm wetting with water. Just for sake of tucking it in your brain, you'll notice that I'm sort of painting with abandonment inside, but when I'm next to the edges, I slow down. So there is times to be fast and then there's times to slow down. If you're going right next to something that you don't want to have any bleeding, slow down. Okay, I'm going to repeat the process. Yellow. Miss Gia, I'm like running out of paint. I might not be able to do this project or this painting with Crayola as much longer anyway.
Well,
Like I can see now the bottom of my pan of yellow. I'm like, oh no.
well, it's important just to use what you have, Miss Anna. You might have to get something else out of the closet.
All right, I'm adding in some orange. Now I think I added less, actually I added no brown, I think, at the top here because I was imagining that there was more sunshine. So I did not use as much orange, as much brown as the top as I did the sides. So you can add brown if you want to. I just didn't because like I said, I was imagining there was more sunshine and I didn't want it to be too dark at the top. It's funny, I feel like on camera it looks more brown, or maybe, I don't know, can you guys see, does it look yellow to you or is it just me looking at the laptop? Looks kind of,
Looks yellow.
Yeah,
Let's
looks
go,
yellow
okay,
to
good.
me.
Maybe it's just when I look at the laptop, I feel like it distorts the colors. Okay, it's really wet, you guys. I'm gonna add in my salt. I've been meaning to do a project, you guys, where I show you the difference between sea salt, like table salt, and kosher, because it does not give the same effect. I think I talked about that a little bit earlier. If you have access to the kosher, it is preferable. But if all you have is table salt, just get your table salt. Okay, I'm repeating. I am wetting the surface first. And yellow. Now, something I can't remember if I talked about it last time because we didn't use salt, did we, in our tree? Some of you did just for fun, but I don't think that was actually part of the lesson. So salt actually slows your drying time down considerably. So if you're waiting for this and you're not using a hairdryer, it's going to take like at least twice as long for this to dry with the salt than it would normally. And so that does apply still with the hairdryer. This process takes longer for it to dry. That's part of the reason I had you guys start with this first. So between the blow drying and just letting it dry naturally, my hope was that this would be dry in time for us to take it off towards the end of the lesson. But bear that in mind, salt does slow it down. The other reason I'm adding orange in, you guys, if you just do yellow, which I think we did a little exercise where we added yellow, kind of like a little sunset, I think last week. The salt has not as much impact because yellow is sort of a weak pigment in especially this Crayola paint. If you have something a little bit nicer brand, you might have a paint that's got a nice punch for yellow, but not everybody does. Anyway, if the pigment is really weak, you're not going to see the salt in its, I don't know, most impactful way. So the darker the color, the better this will show up. That's part of the reason I'm also adding in a little bit of brown and orange, just because it makes the salt actually show up. Okay. So I know we're all working at different speeds, but you should be close to done with this layers. How's everybody doing?
I'm almost done.
Very good. I want to show you a little trick. So typically I always tell you guys, don't go back. Remember I told you the salt slows down drying? Something you can do if you see that it needs it, but I don't think mine needs it, but I'm going to talk to you guys about it anyway. If I wanted to add a little bit more color, you can, we just have to do something different. We have to kind of tap. We can't really paint. So I'm just going to tap the color in. See how it's kind of getting soaked up by the salt? It's kind of traveling. So you can do a little tapping and add a little more color because it's kind of following the salt right now. So I did do that in a few areas, I think, on my last painting. I would not go overkill with this just because this is a complicated technique and it has a tendency to look messy. But if you wanted a little bit more oomph, like say you put the paint on, but it doesn't look dark enough, I would do that. Just tap in a little bit more of an orangey brown mixture just so that it shows up. So take a moment, take a look at your painting, see if it needs any. If it doesn't, you're fine, leave it alone. But I'm pretty happy with mine. I think this is good. All right. We are done with the outer perimeter, you guys. Now I'm going to gently brush away a little bit of salt that's on my door. Take a moment and do that, because if you got salt on your door and you paint your door, the salt has a nasty tendency to, like say it's straddling two lines and you're going to paint, your salt's kind of in the way, but you're painting and it touches that salt. Well, the salt picks up the pigment and then it goes across the line. And so I've done that before. I've been painting and there was salt everywhere, but I didn't wipe it all off. Well, then I got all these marks that the paint sort of went where I didn't want it to go. So if you don't want your paint to go someplace, wipe the salt away. So I'm just wiping all the excess salt off my door because that's where I'm going to be painting next. So I'm giving the outer perimeter a chance to dry. Okay. So like I said, this was really just the blue straight from the pan of the Crayola. I did add a tiny wash, I think, of purple, and I especially use purple in those little areas in here. But now is your time to try your color. If you have tubes, I would consider using, like I said, ultramarine blue and cobalt mixture. I think it looks really pretty. I'm going to warn you guys, start on the lighter side. So the Crayola paints are already light anyway, so I didn't really have to worry about it. But if you guys are working from different kinds of paint, this is where you have to know your paint. if you go to grab your cobalt, sometimes cobalt's pretty pigmented. So if you guys grab a puddle, it is like dark. Be careful. So maybe water it down. So a refresher. If you don't know how to make a color light, what you do is you get your color. I'm gonna show you. Get a color on your palette. I'm gonna use black. It's actually dark. If I get black, and I get a lot of it, and I put it onto my palette, if I went to go paint straight, it's pretty dark. Not the darkest black I've ever had, but it's pretty dark. If I want to lighten it, you get your brush, clean it out, take a little bit of water, and you actually pull some of the pigment out and make another little puddle. And now what I've done is I've made it much lighter. You see that? So this goes for any color that you make. If you decide that's a little dark, go ahead and put a little bit of water into it. And this is also why I forgot to tell you guys, but I always try to keep like a test card near me. This is just a scrap piece of paper from earlier. Test your colors out, especially with regards to how dark they are, but even the color itself. Maybe you don't like that color. And it's kind of hard when you mix that color and you put it on your paper and oh no, it's the wrong color. That's kind of the wrong time to find out. So try on a test card first. Okay, so I'm going to clean out section of my palette because I've got oranges and yellows everywhere. And I'm just gonna get green. So I gotta clean it out first. Okay, now I'm gonna make a nice puddle of my blue. Now I might put a little bit of purple this as I go, but I'm gonna do my first layer, I think, by itself. So I'm gonna get my blue on there. Okay, wet into wet, you guys. I'll wash my brush out. I'm gonna paint the whole door except the doorknob. Do not paint the doorknob and do not paint your mail slot. So those do not get water on them either, because you put water on them, the paint's just going to follow it. So I'm just gonna wet with water the whole door. How are we doing on time?
It's 1:25.
So we will go over time. So if we want to, I don't know, go off Facebook Live, you guys can decide. And
Well, we have
'Cause-
Crayola at 2:30. But we didn't, but the color of the drawing took 30 minutes.
so what would you like me to do? Do you want me to cut it short or?
Just keep going. That's fine.
Okay. Once we use the hair dryer, we should be able to get through this pretty quickly. Really get that door nice and wet, you guys. Like I said, I'm using a small brush, which most of you probably are. So a lot of times what I do is I actually go back up to where I started and I add just a little bit more water again because it's probably started to dry. Okay, I'm gonna go directly into my blue just because I want to make sure I don't run out of time. I did the door in 2 layers. So I'm going to show you what I did. So as I go down the door, yes, it was a little bit messy and a little bit bleeding, but I actually thought I kind of liked it. When I'm done the first sort of little inlay area, I'm going to get my blue and I'm going to add a little bit of purple to it. And I went back in sort of where the little hole is and I just added a little bit of color. It bled a little bit, but it saved me a layer because this paint doesn't layer terribly well. So I tried to do it while it was wet. And so like I said, it won't be clean, but it just sort of puts it in there as I go. Less work for me as I go along. Tip, you guys, do not outline. A lot of my beginner students, when they begin painting, they gravitate towards outlining the door or whatever the object is. Don't do that. If you outline it, by the time you keep going back around, your outline has begun to dry. And more times than not, what I see is this nasty line that develops. So just try to work methodically down and not outline it.
And Caleb is trying to do his digitally. I think he's looking for an effect of some sort, but he's asking what effect does wetting it have?
What effect does wetting it have?
Mhm.
Do you mean like wetting? Why do I wet the surface first? Is that kind of maybe what you mean, Caleb?
Maybe he's trying to recreate it on his laptop.
Well, I don't know anything about digital art, so I can't speak to that part. But the reason watercolor wise why I wet it is because it's softer, Caleb. So the look is always really soft. Can you tell right now how this is sort of drying? Do you see how it's not hard edge at all and it's actually expanding outside of the line? It just looks really soft, which is part of the reason I like it. The other reason, this is from a watercolor standpoint though, so I don't know how this applies to digital. It increases my time of painting, so it won't dry on me immediately. So I don't know how that translates to digital, but that's why I do it with paint. Okay, there we go. So there's my door, you guys. You guys should all be about the same point, roughly. If you're not, I'm gonna start talking about the bricks at the bottom, just because I'm trying to do as many things as I can before I hit the hair dryer. I'm gonna start working on my bricks down at the bottom, and you guys can just catch up with me as you get there. It's no problem. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be staggering my bricks. So just sort of like how I was drawing them, you can't do bricks that are touching each other. So like if I do this one, I can't do this one, and I can't do this one, but I can do this one, this one. So I'm gonna start staggering and I'm gonna do a bunch of bricks. And I made mine different colors. I made some of mine brown. I made some of mine blue and brown, which if you watched our tree video last time, it just sort of neutralizes the color down. And I'm gonna wet the bricks lightly before I paint them, just because I like the softness that it does. And it also means that I can put more than one color in there. And it's a little bit of wet into wet. And I think it creates a little bit of interest with my bricks. Miss Gia, did you decide to paint with us today or are you doing something else?
I did the painting this morning, of course, but then I had a little trouble gathering my materials, and then I was so far behind, I decided I would just watch. So I'm
Okay.
just watching.
Okay. No problem, just wondering.
Anna, what colors did you use for the bricks?
So I'm bear this in mind, it's by Crayola pack, so I don't know what you guys have. I am using brown and blue for some of the more brown tinted bricks. I'm using a combination of brown, blue, and purple for something more towards the blue side. And then I think on my original one, I did a couple of them that had a little bit more orange in them. So you just play around with it, you guys. I tried to make it all different. I even have one random sort of red one over here. So you guys can just sort of play with the colors. I just tried to do it a little bit differently in every area, so it had some interest to it. I just tried to stay away from too much yellow just because we have an intense yellow background. But I did add a little bit of orange. Let's see, I'll do an orange brown one for you so you can see. This one has brown and orange in it, so you can see it kind of picks up the colors from the background a little bit. The reason I add the blue into the brown is just to get a darker brown. The brown in the Crayola pack is not very dark. Typically, if I was using tube paint, that's probably where I would use umber. So if you guys are using tube paint, you may have burnt umber. I would use burnt umber. Maybe this one I'll use a little bit of red. Get more of a red brick. So this is our wet into wet with the bricks. A lot of this project, you guys, is just wet into wet. So that's the predominant technique that we're using really across the board is wet into wet. It gives you a chance of, like I said, painting more than one color in. Okay. So I am about as far as I can go before I need to blow dry. So if you are at this point and you have painted the outside, you painted the door, and you painted a few of the bricks in the front, now is the time to blow dry. So I'm going to spend like, took about a minute, I don't know, 2-3 minutes before everything was dry. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to blow dry for a little bit. I forgot to mention, if you guys are blow drying with me and you have salted your background, which I have as well, start your hair dryer kind of high, so high above the piece, so you're not completely blowing salt everywhere, but there will be some salt carnage. There will be salt everywhere. So,
Santa,
you what?
do we want to avoid like blowing salt into the something that doesn't have salt too? I mean,
Oh,
do your bricks down at the bottom not have salt? What happens if it kind of goes flying over there?
They don't. Well, if I keep my hair dryer facing more towards the top of my picture, so towards the top of my door, that will keep the salt from going down there. But if it really did go down there, it's not the end of the world. It'll be fine.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna mute. Okay. All right, guys. I blow dried for about a minute. And if you guys were watching it all on the camera, I was touching my paper quite often. And the reason I was touching it was to see if it was dry. Pardon me. So as you're going along this picture, I was even touching the corners. You guys probably saw me doing that like a lot. I was like, touch, 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 touch. I was looking for, it has kind of a tackiness to it, especially with the salt. And if I didn't touch it, I couldn't tell if it was dry. Like I said, the salt slows the drying down a lot. So I had to touch this corner here because you probably remember I touched this corner again extra towards the end of the painting, and I could tell it's got a little tackiness almost feeling to it. So it is still just the teeniest bit not dry, which is fine because I can start painting some detail inside this door for now, and then we'll paint this. So let's go back to our door. Okay. So if you can tell in this picture here, I created a little bit more darkness inside these little inlays here. And this is where I did add a little bit more purple and into my blue mixture, as well as a tiny bit of black in the upper corner. So whichever your shadow side is coming from, if you made it on this side, that's fine. I just made all of mine on the left. So I'm just going to repeat that all the way down. All the boxes are going to have a little extra shadow going in on the upper left corner. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm going to try to do all these, is I'm going to actually wet each one at a time, again, with water, and then go in and paint it and get that darkness to show up. Okay, now it looks like my door generically is a little bit lighter than my original. So if I was to doing this picture by myself, but I don't want to waste too much time with you guys, I would probably go back and do another layer. But I could always do that when I'm done today. So when I'm done today, I could come back and make this darker, because if you can see, this is like 2 shades darker than this guy, but that's okay. I don't want to eat up too much of your guys' time. So I'm just going to make my dark color. I'm adding blue and purple. You could always add blue and red, which will also get you purple. I'm just utilizing my Crayola paint. Okay. So something I noticed about the Crayolas, do you see how it's starting to lift? I don't know if anyone can see that. See that little white mark? The Crayolas lift like crazy. And lifting colors is actually a nice thing, but this almost lifts too much. That's why I said earlier that the Crayolas are not super awesome at layering. So I try not to do too many layers, because it just does that. It just sort of lifts up. I added just the tiniest bit of black into this mixture. I also added a little bit of brown just to darken up this blue, and I'm just gonna sort of make like an L shape. I will say about the Crayola black, the Crayola black is pretty matte. It's also pretty opaque. Which opaque means that it's not as transparent. So usually with watercolors, they're what do they call transparent, which means that if you keep doing layers, the layers from underneath will kind of shine through. But some watercolor paints are not as transparent, they're more opaque. Kind of like acrylic paint, but the other opposite, right? That's very opaque. All right, so I got my nice dark door, at least one dark hole in the door. I'm gonna keep moving on. So you guys, I see some of you were hair drying when I was talking about painting the inside. Does anyone not know what to do on the inside? You guys all good?
Yeah, if you could mention it again, Jonna, would like to hear.
Okay. So if you guys were blow drying in the middle of what I was talking about what to do here, what I'm doing is I'm going into every one of those little inlays and I'm re-wetting it with water first. And then I'm adding a darker concoction of blue and purple. And then as I build up, I also added a little bit of brown and black to get really dark. And I'm really just putting it in the corner. So wherever your shadow is coming from, mine is obviously coming from over here. So I've got a shadow in the upper left corner. And so I'm making a little L in every upper left corner of the little inlays. So it kind of looks like that. Yeah, it's already making that pop. Okay. I'm gonna scoot down and continue. There probably isn't, I'm assuming. Is there any questions on Facebook that I needed to answer?
I don't see any.
Okay. It is beautiful outside. I don't know if you guys have looked out your windows today or gone outside, but it's pretty. Can't wait to go take my dog for a walk. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep plugging along, you guys. So if something is confusing and you guys don't know what you're doing or what colors, just ask, but I want to keep going. What I'll probably do, Mr. John and Gia, is I will finish the painting with everybody, but then I think I will just show you how to ink it, and then I'll probably have you guys just ink it off camera. That way you guys can get ready for your drama class. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Is Sophia Stanton coming?
Is anybody in a place that they want to show me how they're doing? Because I realized I haven't seen anybody's work.
In what?
In what? In your door.
She's asking.
I mean, I guess I could see anything, but
I think Joey's showing his a little bit. Let me see.
oh, Joey, that looks good. I feel like your background looks like a nice, like fiery color. Nice.
And Gianna has one.
Let me show you
Ooh.
Abby's.
Okay, tell them they gotta wait.
Hold on one second. I'm one at a time.
I'll call you.
That's Gianna.
Nice, Gianna.
And then Macy.
Oh, hi, Macy. I didn't know you were here, sweetie. Hi. That looks good. Very good. Nice. So you're working on those inlays? Maybe. That's okay. That looks good, hon. I don't know. I thought this was a nice, I don't know, deviation from other projects that we work on in class. This is kind of fun. Maybe it's just fun for me. I don't know.
Like it? I guess she don't like that. Poke her in the eye.
Hi, AP. How's it going? Good? Maybe not so good?
I think it looks good.
I know, it looks good from over here. So how do you feel it's going, sweetie? Are you confused by anything? Or are you doing okay? You like it?
I think I'm doing okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, if you don't feel like you're frustrated, that's good. I'll take it.
Evelyn's showing hers right now.
Good, Evelyn. Oh, good. You got some bricks in there. It looks like you're starting to darken your inlay. Very good.
Like it.
I like it.
too.
I like you guys
this.
I like all your doors are a little bit different. I like it. Okay. So I've just done all the inlays of my door right now. So I'm gonna let those dry. Now here's for the next part. I have blow dried the background and you guys should have too. I have not taken my salt off yet, but now is the time for me to take my salt off because at this point, if I painted the, oops, got some of my paper. If I was going to paint these bricks right now and the salt is still in the background, what's going to happen? Remember I talked about this earlier. If I paint this, it's going to touch the salt and it's going to bleed into my background. So now the salt does have to come off. So a little trick that I developed earlier is I found you can obviously just swipe it off with your finger and that does work pretty well. But at some point, depending if you have it thick like I do, I have it thick in some areas. I actually just took my ruler and I gently scraped it off like this and it comes off like a dream. So just gently start scraping off your salt. And I have a plate near me, but you need to put this in the garbage can or something so they're not everywhere. Your mama might not appreciate salt everywhere. Or at least you might have to be nice and vacuum up wherever you're working. So I'm just gonna scrape all my salt off. Take us off camera a second when I'm dumping mine onto the plate. And you don't have to use your ruler, you guys. If you're quite successful with just using your finger, that's great. I just found that there was some that was really stuck on.
Miss Anna?
Yep.
She wants to know when we might do something like this.
Ooh, we could start doing that. That would have to be more than a once sitting, I think. So whenever we're ready to start doing like little classes that build on each other, it was like a 3 to 4 hour project, I think.
It was more like 5.
So do you want to do it maybe in May? Do you want to start in May?
Absolutely, at least by then. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
So everyone has time to get all their materials. But this is Jana's that we did at your house.
I like it. I think it was a really fun project.
It was fun.
Okay, so I have just wiped out all of my salt. So I am nice and clean now. You guys can see that. And so see how I have a nice accumulation of that dark sort of orangish brown on this side, which I think I am pretty happy with. So now we're gonna start painting this guy, sort of our brick perimeter. I made him slightly violet toned. So now we're gonna take a moment and practice our colors, and we're gonna be blending a little bit because I don't know, everyone's got different colors. Let's do a little color testing. So I'm gonna get my piece of paper because we're gonna do a little bit of testing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix, I'm pretty sure I just did purple and brown, but I might have actually added a little bit of blue and maybe a touch of black. So let's do a refresher for myself. So I'm grabbing purple straight out of the pan. Just so there's a reference, you can see. Here's what purple looks like straight out of the pan. That is very purple. To me, that is too purple. I wanted a subtlety. Hence why I added a little bit of the brown. And I bet you I added blue in there too. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of brown and purple, and then maybe a smidgen of blue. So it's kind of more gray toned. I'm gonna add a little bit more brown still. Yeah, there's my color. So you just play around for a second, decide what color you want. Now this is really dark. I'm gonna thin my color out a little bit. I would rather it be too light and then just put more pigment down if I need it to be darker than have it be way too dark. So I'm gonna caution you guys, err on the side of light. So put your water into this mix. I don't want it to be too dark. So I salted this as well, you guys. So I'm gonna start with the left corner and I'm gonna work my way up to the top, and then I'm gonna come all the way down to the right side. I'm gonna do one, I'm gonna do in 3 parts. So 1, 1, 1, and I'm gonna add salt as I go. All right. So I'm gonna wet. Add my purple. Now I kept my purple really, I don't know, I kept it stronger in the corners and the edges, and then I just sort of randomly pulled it through the middle. I kind of imagine like it's stuck in all the edges, and maybe it's like a shadow or something. So bear that in mind. I did not put it everywhere. I wanted little holes of white. So do not apply your purple mixture everywhere, you guys. Be more subtle with it.
Looks like we lost your phone.
Uh-oh. Oh, because it's low power mode. Let me plug myself in. Am I back? Here, let me plug me in. There we go. I think I want a little more brown towards the brown side, you guys. If I add too much purple, it just gets very purpley. So make sure you're adding a sufficient amount of brown and a little bit of blue in order to counteract the purple tones. Yeah, it kind of turns gray. I want a little bit of gray right in the seams of my brick. This is sort of like my shadow. This is all
Wait,
wet into
so-
wet. Yes, ma'am?
So we do put salt in it or no?
Yes,
salt?
yes. I'm just finishing up the dark. I'm adding a little bit of dark into mine first. And then as soon as I'm happy with the amount of dark, which I'm just about there now, Now I'm gonna take my salt and I'm gonna add it in. I got a little salt in my door. Whoops. Okay.
We're gonna need to stop it.
Sorry I took so long. Well, you can cut me off, I guess.
So you're gonna do the same technique around the door, right? Is there anything else that is gonna happen after that? Maybe there's,
Yeah, the last few touches was going to be adding the purple tone down here on the ground that isn't the bricks, and adding in a kind of golden brown in the doorknob and the mail slot,
And then inking.
and then inking. But
Could we do that on another session in case anybody wanted to join again?
we could. Do you want me to just stop and leave it, and then we can pick it up where we left off?
yeah, we could do that.
Okay. So sorry, guys. I picked a longer project, I guess.
It's a
So
good
if you
one,
want
though.
to, yeah, well, they spend a little more time. So I'm just gonna stop now. Then I'm gonna finish my salt. So if you guys want to continue this without direction, you obviously are welcome to do so. Otherwise, you guys can wait and finish the rest of this project with me later. I don't know when, but later. Sound good? Okay, good. All right, so I will be signing off of Facebook, you guys. I know this was kind of a long video. Join me again. We will let you know when we're going to pick up and finish the rest of this project. It shouldn't take much longer, but we went kind of over today. So thanks for joining me, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.